Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of the M Brief podcast. This episode, we've got Jason with GPNVG with us, kind of a night vision guru, interacts a lot with the law enforcement community as far as going to conferences, a little bit of training, and obviously also sales of night vision to law enforcement. So wealth of knowledge in that realm. We're going to deep dive in some topics that I don't think gets covered, and it's generally hard to find information as law enforcement officers about night vision in the application of which we would use it. So we're going to go down some of those rabbit holes today in this episode. So tune in if you're interested in that. Jason, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, dude. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah,
It's
man.
good
So
information that needs to get out there.
yeah, 100%. So for the guys that are not familiar with you in GPMVG and you personally, give a little bit of background on yourself and also a little bit of background on what GPMVG does as well.
Yeah, sure. Uh, Military guy, was a cop for 12 years. Spent a lot of time on a SWAT team. So, we have that operational background and experience. And got out of law enforcement right in that early 2020s, kind of when the mass exodus happened for a lot of places. And I was looking for a new mission. I got a little bit lost and had to try to start a few things. And I had a buddy that wanted to get the LE and the MILT program running for his night vision company, GPNVGs. So he brought me on, and I just kind of carried on the mission that I've always had as I was going through, working with teams and stuff on the training side is validating information and data and making sure that people are making the right decision. There is a lot of bad information out there in the night vision industry, and I can't remember if it was you and I talking. Somebody said it that if you think there's drama in the tactical industry, the gun industry, then look at the suppressor industry, and if you think there's suppressor drama, then look at the night vision industry. So, there is a lot of it out there. So, something that I always just took as my mission in when I was in law enforcement, and then as I got out and started doing the training side, just making sure that people are making the right decisions and doing what's best for their team, and the group of guys that they work with, whether it's a MIL or an LE team. And just make sure they get the equipment they need, I guess. And it's kind of a simple mission. You'd think it'd be easy, but everything's out there is so confusing. It's hard to make those decisions sometimes.
Yeah, and we're going to deep dive into some of those maybe areas that maybe can mislead people that are just unaware, stuff like that. But kind of keeping on you. So what originally drew you to become a law enforcement officer, probably 15, 16, 16, 17 years ago or whatever it was?
Um, so so my dad was a cop. I mean, that's kind of he was actually a cop and a fireman. So he was doing the public safety thing where he'd do half a shift as one and half a shift as another. So kind of an interesting concept. But anyway, so that was kind of like that. Hey, I knew somebody who did it, and then yeah, I got out. As I kind of went through my military career, it was something that I decided I wanted to do, and there's that average. It's the adventurous, go out and have fun and save the world type stuff that they tell you, and that's true for the most part. But man, there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of groups of people out there that are victimized more than others, and I got the opportunity to get on and help people like that, get on some teams and some things that I was doing. So not really my mission when I started, but my mission was to, I really wanted to help people and, make a difference in the world like everybody says. But I was different than most guys that get into it because I really wanted to go out and go after the people that are really out there victimizing, women and children and all that stuff. And so I got the opportunity to do that. And, it kind of kept me going for as long as it did, because there are some of the other parts that are pretty rough. And I mean, it's hard to stick around sometimes. So that kept me going for a while. But really, just I just leaned into, hey, I know I said I want to help people, and that's what I'm going to do. So
Yeah. And
that's
and
yeah,
I think the job in general right now, like the current generation and mine and your generation, like we were always preached like to make it to retirement, the pension, all this stuff. And it's not really I don't think it's as important anymore to our generation and the current generation in law enforcement. We're not chasing that pension as much. I left full-time law enforcement as well after crunching some numbers, and like Yeah, a full pension is nice, but when you realize what you're actually paying into the system as well, and where you can maybe reinvest some of that money and stuff like that, like it's not the end all be all. Yes, it is nice, but like there are other things out there, and obviously you found that, I found that, and many others are as well. And I know the agency I'm still sworn at and that I was full time at, like it's people are coming and going all the time. It's just not as big of a deal when people leave the profession anymore.
Yeah.
So what originally got you into night vision? Like, what was your first exposure to night vision in law enforcement? Obviously, the military generally had it well before law enforcement did, but in the law enforcement realm, or like, as you were exiting law enforcement, what kind of got you into nerding out on it?
So we didn't get night vision at the agency that I was at until the very end of my time there. So I definitely played a huge part in getting that for the agency, but didn't get to spend as much time with it on the law enforcement side. I know we used it. Um, there's so I think the thing that got me to nerd, there's so much technology out there, and you know as well as I do that there's a lot of stuff that teams will go out and buy and they'll get and they'll say, hey, it's a really cool tool, but now I don't know how to implement it into what we're doing, and we either leave it on the truck or we got to send somebody, it's how do I make this work and let it help me do my job as opposed to it making a hindrance. So I liked doing that with all technology. Was, hey, how can I make this more useful to what we're doing, and if it's not useful, how can we find something else or just get rid of it. So night vision, with number one, with it being such a it's very technical, and a lot of people are kind of you're scared of things you don't know. So with things like that, I just jump right into it, and to me it was so fast because there's so many things you can use it for. Use surveillance. Patrol guys get way more use out of night vision than SWAT teams do. So just the versatility of the tool, and just as I spent so many years on midnights, and a lot of guys spend a lot of years in their career on midnights. Being able to see in the dark is a superpower, and we do all these other things for guys, and you can literally purchase a superpower for your guys, and it's a mountain that you have to climb. And I just want to make sure that it's such a good piece of technology that, hey, if we can get it to these guys, let's get it to as many people as we can.
Yeah, so you said you got it towards the end of your career. It's kind of when it started rolling out, and that's when you started nerding out to realizing how many different things you can use it for. Whether that's in a patrol setting or a tactical setting, right? Like you said, patrol has a ton of uses for it. And maybe they don't need the most Gucci version of night vision at a patrol level, or even honestly a SWAT level. So let's start deep diving into some of the application that outside the box thinking stuff that at a patrol level. We'll hit on the tactical stuff later, but at a patrol level at an agency, your midnights. What are some things that cops could utilize night vision? Kind of thermals a different debate, but oftentimes they cross pollinate a little bit. But that type technology that oftentimes is overlooked by administrators or even cops and users themselves.
Yeah, so the biggest one that I like to use this example all the time, and it blows people. Some people know, a lot of people don't. You can use night vision and a laser and see into a car at night. Um, it's regardless of the darkness of the tent. So you see there's some people out there that are like, you can put your phone on the window and you can look inside the car. And to me, that's another one of those, like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm walking up to the car and put my phone on the window. Okay, but
So if there
anyway,
is something in there, you're screwed anyway. But yeah,
right, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So it's from a distance, I can basically illuminate in the inside of a car, and I can count heads. They could see a kid bouncing around in the back seat. Car stops at night, uh, for anybody, is one of the most dangerous things that we do, right? So add window tint to it, we know how quickly that can go south. So that's the biggest one in my opinion, is at night. That was, you're walking up on a car you can't see in, and I don't know about you, but that always gave me the heebie-jeebies. So being able to defeat that as a patrol guy with something as simple as a PVS 14 and a laser, walk around behind my patrol car, hit the inside of it, see it, figure out what's going on, before I walk up on it. I think that's a huge, again, superpower, right? So That's one of that's one of the big ones that I like to use. Definitely field searches, man tracks, canine tracks and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I can't tell you how many times I saw canine guys go on tracks in the middle of the woods or cornfield in the middle of the night and try to find a guy, and you're walking right past him. We did that once on an op. We were walking past a guy for hours. Um, he was laying in the woods. He had got outside of containment, laying in the woods, and we were changing guys out. And so something as simple as that, it just changes the environment completely for everybody. So, when you say outside the box thinking, I mean, there's 100 different things you could use, but the biggest thing is that I'm now illuminating the darkness and taking that advantage away from somebody else. So that's the biggest example I like to use. Or we could sit here and talk about a few more,
Yeah.
but it's stuff like that. So
Yeah, I think it is reasonable, especially your super proactive officers that are getting after it at nighttime, making a lot of vehicle stops on vehicles that likely have tinted windows. And depending on where you work at, every car could essentially have tinted windows, right? If like Florida, everyone's got tinted windows. And just like you said, a PVS 14 handheld device uh, paired with a super simple IR laser. You roll around to do a passenger side approach likely anyway, this day and age, and it doesn't take more than 10, 15 seconds at the back of your vehicle just to get a snapshot of what's happening. And now your situational awareness rolling up, if someone's in that back seat, like that's huge. Like that could be life saving. And that's just one application. And like some people may say, oh, well, like you're using night vision on vehicle stops. Like throw it in your cargo pocket. Like how much other crap do you keep in your cargo pocket or a dump pouch or whatever else, right?
guys are still rocking the SL20s or whatever, and they're sticking out. It's
Right.
like
So like I don't find that. And again, for the price point of a basic PVS 14, like the departments spend their money on far stupider things, in my opinion. Um, and it also doesn't have to be something that's assigned to each officer. It can be one of those things officers can check out at the beginning of a shift, and then utilize it that way once they've gotten the proper training on it. Right, like any piece of technology needs to have training on things like that, like you spoke on, and so you just don't have officers ad hocing things or figuring things out on their own. Also, something that like I, I think's under spoken of is like children go missing in many jurisdictions all the time, like missing juvenile calls. Like almost every shift you're getting one of those, and if it's at nighttime, like, and you don't have a canine available, like what are you really going to do? You're going to hope the kid's in the closet. That's what you're hoping. And well, 7 out of 10 times the kids in the closet are hiding in the house. However, being able to do like somewhat of a grid search, it's going to go much quicker and much more efficient if you have some ability to see at nighttime. Again, whether that's a thermal type thing or whether that's a night vision type thing for that circumstance, both are going to be great solutions in my experience. And it doesn't have to be some quad tube $40,000 device to make this work at a patrol level by any means. And I just think it's overlooked a lot of times at patrol, like you said. This day and age, anyone and everyone could buy night vision themselves, could buy thermals themselves, and when you show up on this call, you're overmatched instantly if that has occurred, based off of what that suspect's capability is and what yours is. And I think many people will say, well, that's not realistic. No, it's happened quite a few times, to where a suspect or someone's house that you're walking up to, like they have this technology, especially in areas where I work and many others work near military bases. Like you truly are overmatched. They have better training than you in this device. They have a lot of times better devices that they've purchased on their own just because they're nerds as well. Maybe this is a nerd that's kind of slipped off the rocker a little bit. Lastly, what I'll point to is the surveillance portion. Um, it's overlooked at a patrol level as well. Statistically, cops get hemmed up on approaches to houses more than we do once we're inside of houses. And at nighttime, everyone's got a Ring camera these days or surveillance outside their houses. And that night vision, as you know, it's instantly going to let you know where those devices are based off the IR signatures they're sending out. And maybe you can better your approach based off of that situational awareness that you've gained at afar with just a PVS 14. I know many a times on scouts that I've done for houses, some other things that I was involved with surveillance purposes, we likely were not compromised as early because we figured out where those things were. Yeah, I just think it's overlooked. And the canine thing, Jesus, like if you're a canine handler and you're not pushing for night vision, in my opinion, I've never been a canine handler, but I've done many tracks with canine handlers as cover officers. I've gone on tracks where I had night vision and they didn't, which in my opinion is ass backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, how are they supposed to read their dog? Like that's what they're doing. They're feeling that line tension from my understanding, and they're reading their dog. Well, you can't see your dog. So like, how are you actually reading it? Just off line tension? I don't know if I believe that or not. And I would not feel comfortable as a canine handler tracking in the dark when that technology is available and fairly cheap for what you're getting.
Yeah, I think that's. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. I think that's one of those. I can't remember which logical fallacy it is, but it's you just justifying. Oh, the tension is all I need to read the dog. And I always wondered to myself. I really never got a good answer from anybody of whether that was in the dark when you can't see your dog, reading the line tension or the leash tension. It's just one of those things that you tell yourself is good enough because you don't want to fight for being able to see your dog in the dark anymore. It's just kind of one of those, you just give up and say, yeah, that's the best way to do it because I can't do it any other way, right? So anyway, but yeah, that's a huge one. I've been on so many tracks. I use the cornfield example because that's one I've been on. And in the middle of the night in a cornfield, it's darker than anywhere else in the world. The light does not get in there very well. So, depending on what tools you have, that night vision and thermal definitely, even thermal, giving that just the detection capability. If you had the ability, just, hey, maybe it's an animal, but at least now I know something's there. We just had something happen in Missouri recently where 3 guys walked up on a dude in the middle of the woods trying to find him, and he shot 3 of them and killed 2 of them. So
Yeah, I mean, just being able to scan a wood line prior to entering it to make sure no one is laying there and wait. There's so many examples of where night vision and thermal can be utilized in not some tactical fashion. I, I'll say that I've ran with canines where the handlers did have night vision, and I also did, and you're able to move at a far greater pace with your track than if someone doesn't have the capability. And then when you put that through a lens of community safety, like obviously we're tracking this person for a reason. Um, they're clearly fleeing us, right? So it is not uncommon for people that flee to bed down in people's houses, garages, stuff like that. So the quicker we can apprehend them, hopefully before this guy gets out of the woods or wherever we're at, the better. So the faster I can perform that track, which is going to be under night vision, the safer the community is in that situation. And I think when we phrase things and what's going to keep the community safer, not necessarily, yes, it is more officer safety, but the community safety comes before officer safety. And they have a hard time saying no as long as it's a reasonable ask when you frame things in the community safety lens. And SWAT guys are the worst. We're like, oh, we need night vision because we want to look like CAG or whoever, right? Like,
yeah, we just went to this training and this guy had this really cool night vision.
Right? Yeah, like there's some cool pictures on Instagram, and I want to look like that person. But no, you need to actually find articulable things that you will use it for, how it will benefit the community, not just you and your team. Another example is large community events that take place at night. You can stage perimeter units that have that capability. Oftentimes these large events take place in large ass fields. We'll say 4th of July event type things. Having that ability to scan the crowd in real time is a superpower. Scan the wood line around that field. If you don't have that capability and it goes bad at one of those events, it's already going to be mass chaos. And now you can't even see where the fire is coming from potentially. Like we started doing that where I worked, and the crowd never knew we were doing it, but from like an operational posturing standpoint, like it gave me warm and fuzzies as being boots on the ground there, right? Like so of course something could always happen, but we were postured for if that thing did happen far better to being able to handle the situation quickly rather than us getting caught in that chaos a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I can't say too much more on that. That's a perfect example because, again, just like the canine thing I was talking about, you kind of try to, I don't know whether it's a command level or whatever, but they're trying to justify like, oh, white light's good, or if this happens, then we're good because of this, and it's like, or I could just be able to see in the dark and make sure that the boogeyman's not sneaking up on all of us when like you said, it's kind of like watching your kids play in the backyard from the house. It's like they don't know I'm watching, but I'm keeping an eye on them. You know what I mean? And they don't need to know. They just need to know that there's nobody sneaking up on them. So
So to your knowledge, right? You're in the industry. I'm really not. I'm just more of an end user type. Um, what would be the cheapest, not necessarily that you guys even sell, just that's out there, the cheapest piece of night vision, whether it's the digital stuff, the some Gen 2, whatever it is, what's the cheapest thing that a civilian could buy that would give them an overmatch capability on law enforcement that does not have the capability?
any of that digital, go on Amazon, go on, uh, any of those types of websites that sell that digital cheap. I mean, when we're talking cheap, we're talking several $100s. Um, then there's countless other things out there that meet this criteria, but the night vision is huge. It doesn't take much at all, to be honest with you. It's a couple $100 solution, and if you show up to their house without night vision, you're bring your lunch because they can see in the dark and you can't. So you're
Right.
gonna be fighting white light. You're gonna be trying to and overmatching that with depending on what type of night vision that person has, you might be able to defeat it with that bright super bright light. But you know, at least the first responding guys are gonna have a tough time until we get everything figured out. Because I know that I've been on several scenes where it was well over an hour before we felt like we had a good grasp on what was going on. So, imagine during that hour, we've got somebody with night vision that's just doing whatever they want to do. They can move, they can do whatever they want. So, yeah, it doesn't take much money at all. A couple $100, and they can overmatch.
Yeah, and it's going to be a massive problem for someone that is truly dedicated, right? And we're starting to see more and more of these truly dedicated people in the world. This isn't like a scare tactic or anything. No, it's factual. It's objective. To where like they know their house better than we know their house. Like they can move shooting positions. It's already going to be difficult if it's dark to figure out that stuff. But now if this person has a say a $500 cheap set of digital night vision, like it's going to be a massive issue because the cover that you think you have probably isn't likely as good as you think it is at nighttime. And they can see when you come out from around it. It's a nightmare, right? And again, it's out there. Hunters buy this stuff all the time. Military guys that like to nerd out on this stuff buy it all the time. It's not an unattainable thing for civilians. I think a lot of folks that aren't in the industry think, oh, that's just military stuff. No, no, regular Joes are buying this stuff all the time. And that's their right. I'm glad they can. But we as law enforcement should at least have the same capability as civilians. I'm not saying we need to have like some crazy amount more. We should at least be on the same playing field as these guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we do that with a lot of things. When I was just really kind of like a wild, but a good example is the like California Highway Patrol. They're really known well for their supercar, fast, pursuit rated. Well, why did we do that? Well, it's because everybody else got faster cars. So it's kind of the same example of we. It's not unheard of to make sure that we're at least the same capability as the people that we're going to try to capture and take into custody. So.
Yeah. So pivoting off of that, kind of onto the, I guess more of the tactical application, and then we'll get into like some of the nerd stuff after this. But the tactical application, right? Like so, the last say 4 or 5 years that I was on the team, we had 1531 like dual tube night vision white Voss, and it absolutely changed the way that we handled certain situations. I think where a lot of law enforcement guys get a little bit mixed up in their articulation is like they think they're going to be going through houses, doing search warrants under nods, all this stuff. That's not really practical in my opinion. Maybe limited scope, but I don't think it's practical. Where it is a game changer for me in my experience is when you're dealing with barricaded subjects at nighttime. It makes it so you can move far more efficiently. You have better essay on the house as you're moving, where you don't really know where that individual is in a barricade. Hopefully you have negotiators on scene, so on and so forth. But likely, if you're responding to a barricade at night as a SWAT guy, you're tapping out patrol guys, right? You're taking up their positions, tapping them out. sometimes patrol guys are really freaking hard to find. Like if they're like, yeah, they're over there on this corner, and you're like, where are they at? Like, well, night vision, it's one, far easier to find the patrol guys to tap out, but then two, be able to keep eyes on the house. Another thing that I found with the barricade, I mean, this is a deep rabbit hole, is your Sierra units, your snipers. They have the capability as well. And they have, obviously magnification that they can see a little bit deeper into places at depth, into that house. And you want to talk about like warm and fuzzies of as I move, like we know this guy's armed. There's a reason that he's a barricade right now, that I can say, hey, I'm moving to that Sierra unit. Can you watch this sector for me? They check whatever your communication method is, and then you move. It's just great. Also, what's underspoken of is the communication capability of night vision when paired with IR devices. How so much can go nonverbal. It's less you've got to be on the net. The less talk on a radio channel, generally the better in a critical incident, in my opinion. And the fact that you can have confirmations with those snipers, like, hey, can you watch this window? Then they tag it with a IR device, like, yep, okay, I see you're on it. Check, we're going, right? All these things, oftentimes underthought before guys have actually experienced that in real time, and they see the capability of it on this is specifically to barricade stuff. Have you guys dealt with teams or worked with teams that like to your knowledge, it changed the way they handled situations?
Yeah, going through the training side, that's we see that a lot. Where um, I'll give you a perfect example. We were up in Alaska training with those guys up there, the troopers, and um, very probably one of the top tier organizations in our country. They do a lot of crazy stuff. Um, they had finally moved on and got that capability, and so. Just over the several days that I spent with each team, you could see them grow in all different. We kind of went through all the different things that they might do or would do, or kind of worked through some of the things since I didn't have that much time with them. But it definitely from day one to the end of two or three, there was a huge change that I could see, and and that's typically there was a little bit of frustration though too, because like you said, there's a lot of things that you can use the night vision for, especially communication. To me, I think that's one of the biggest things, especially on a barricade. You mentioned that, but and we can get over into that here in a minute. But the teams like that who go from no capability to the night vision capability is, if they do it correctly, that you can see the team like, hey, okay, now this thing that was really scary, not scary, but the in the middle of the night barricades that are very confusing, people moving around. We got, people drawing on boards and windows and stuff. And now it's like, just the fact that you can see makes you feel better, right? Like, I don't, and I had this when I was a kid. You walk around scout camp as a little kid, and then all of a sudden somebody turns a light on, and it's really weird. You're still in the middle of the woods, but you feel safer, right? And so
There's a saying, the body doesn't like going where the mind hasn't seen.
exactly, yeah. So it's like that's why we invented fire, probably. It's like I'm just
That
not being
warmth,
scared.
yeah.
So I guess we didn't invent fire. We discovered fire, but um, it makes you feel better. I can see when I'm moving around. If I, it's just it makes everything better and safer. So I think that's the biggest thing. But yeah, we see it a lot. Like once there's a click moment, right? Because you have this. Well, the nonverbal, like you talked about, a lot of people like to argue, well, oh, there's all these things that we have to learn now, and there's, we're not this tier one military team that has to, give hand signals and flash our lights at each other and stuff. Let's just talk on the radio. I've heard that before. And it's like, well, if I just need to ask you a question and you need to acknowledge it, and I can do that by flicking my laser, why wouldn't I do that? Right? We just got to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So I think when we see the biggest change in teams is when they realize, one of the things that I ask teams when I'm evaluating them for night vision is who are you as a team, and what are you staying where you're at as what's your identity, and then where do you want to be? Are we going somewhere, and what do I need that capability to look like when we get there? And then once we kind of go through that, figure out what kind of a team they are. That, hey, we do a couple barricades a year, but mostly it's tracks, canine tracks, field searches, big large venue events and stuff like you mentioned earlier. I'm like, cool, all right. Well, so you said you need panos and malls, but I don't think that we need to go there, right? So, it's the biggest change that we see when we train teams and go deal with teams is the once they understand the capability and say, okay, this is something I can use to help me, and it's a life-saving tool. So, um, that's where I see the biggest change. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's what I like to see is when that click moment's like, oh, this is really going to help us, and you kind of stop getting that pushback of like, oh, it's just this new technology that we have to learn.
Yeah, and again, once teams get the technology and they get comfortable with it, it's tough to go back, right? And just we all hate change. Like as a profession, we're not good at change. However, generally once a change occurs and people get used to it, most of the time it's for the good. Most of the time, not all the time. Um, so getting into like some more of the I guess technical nerdy side of the house without getting too deep in the weeds. Um, when you're steering teams or agencies, whoever it is, patrol level, whatever, between a dual tube device versus a multi tube device, what's usually the rubric that you put things through there?
Um, so obviously budget's one of the biggest things, right? Is we want to make sure that we're working inside of something. I don't want to. Hey, I know you guys said you have this grant or you have this money set aside, but let's evaluate. Let's see what. But we have things you can buy that are way more expensive. My thing is, so budget is kind of the biggest thing, and that kind of like a seems like a car salesman. Well, how much are you looking to spend? It's like, well, I'm not going to tell you that. Let's see if we can make a deal first, right? It's more of a on this side of it. It's hey, I want to try to. As a matter of fact, most of the time I ask that question, I either come in under budget or I'm just able to get them more for what they thought they were going to spend, right? So that's kind of the biggest thing. The next thing is again the who are you as a team and where are you going as a team? Because then that will tell me like, hey, you might need some teams might be just fine with white phosphor monoculars.
Hmm.
That's the capability, but we're not spending a complete fortune on getting everybody that team that cap. So then my next question usually is, are you guys prioritizing? We want the best of the best, or we want everyone to have the capability. Because if you give me a budget and then you say we want the best, then now we're okay. Well, about half of you are going to get the best, when I say best, I don't mean it's that's why I was saying earlier that whole confusing part of it is it's not necessarily the capability of the night vision, right? It's kind of a weird thing of how you categorize it all, and we'll get into that soon. But that's the biggest thing. And it's like, well, if you're prioritizing, I just want everybody to have the capability, and then that's like, okay, now here's some options we can play with, and make sure that you guys get what you need. I'd say those are the biggest things. Everything else, and notice I didn't say anything about FOM, or notice I didn't say anything about stuff like, because truthfully it mostly doesn't matter for the average law enforcement user. But just getting a feel for who they are, what they want to do, and what they need out of that capability answers most of the questions I need to know, and then we can just start going from there.
Yeah, so I know from my experience, we started out with PVS 14s, right? Gave the team a massive capability, and it was kind of like our gateway drug, if you will. This is what we could afford at the time, and that's where we started to change some SOPs and like, okay, what can we do with this? What can't we do with this? Let's play and experiment a little bit and see where we can get to, and then that gave us more articulation a couple years down the road of hey, let's upgrade this. The dual tubes will give us slightly more capability, um, with some movement type things. And I want to say capability. You can do everything on a PVS 14 that you could a set of dual tubes. It's kind of the ease of being able to do it in my experience, right? Like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a nerd with this. I experienced both. My perceived depth perception was better on dual tubes than it was on single tubes, as far as like me being able to figure out spatial awareness type stuff. That's what I felt. I felt as, and it may have just been because I had more time on a single tube already. That was just better at the spatial awareness already. That was the biggest hurdle for guys to get over is once they put whatever single double down, uh, their spatial awareness not bumping into everything, not crashing through a house, all that stuff. And I think people just think you're going to be able to put night vision on and do everything you can do without night. No, it takes a lot of work to be able to transition your capability without night vision to night vision.
Yeah, some teams hate it and they get bored with me sometimes, but I'm like, hey, one of the first things I usually have them do if they're brand new to night vision is we'll go play tag, we play hide and seek, we walk around through buildings. I have them do everything from tying your shoes to, grabbing a saw off the truck and putting gas in it, like all the things that we do in the dark where we got to have a flashlight trying to me that seems way harder, but yeah, just being able, just getting used to it and watching people run into stuff and figure it out. But you're not wrong when the dual tubes definitely help with that depth perception. But as well as I do, a lot of us, if in our generation have, if anybody spent any time in GWAT, you spend a lot of time under a single monocular, and you kind of just get used to. And not saying that's the best. It's they were green, a lot of them, so there's that. But even just going from green to white monocular is going to change your depth perception, because the reason they went to white is it's more natural to the eye and stuff like that. So but yeah, the more obviously that's why panos, now you're going to have even better depth perception, and then the awareness of more of your peripheral, and so you're going to move forward. But the biggest thing that people, I guess the science and the biology behind it, is that you're aiding the eye in the dark, which your brain is not used to doing. Your brain is just used to not being able to see in the dark until it's night vision. Your natural night vision kicks in, and now I can see more. So not only that, your brain is trying to process this image in the dark, because your brain still knows it's dark. And then the other thing is, you've got this much more stuff sticking off your face that I'm 40 years old. So if this is the first day I've ever put night vision on, I've been walking around the earth for 40 years without something sticking off the end of my face. And so your brain now has to compensate for having that huge thing sticking off. So, just the biological things that happen, the physiological, or I don't know, I wasn't good at science, whatever it is. You're just trying to get used to it. So, um, I think that you asked me a question, and I went down a
No,
little
you answered
rabbit.
it. I
Okay,
feel like
yeah,
you haven't lived until you've been decleated under a set of nods.
exactly. Yeah.
And like it's going to happen eventually. It's just, when is it going to happen? And it's a perfect example. Your body's just not used to this thing sticking off your face, and you're going to hit something eventually with that thing sticking off your face.
Well,
Um,
and even
and
guys that have a lot of training on it. I mean, even on a law enforcement team, maybe we pull those out twice a year for training, and then we had 3 barricades last year. That's potentially 5 times that I've used it. You're still not going to get that, and you brought it up earlier. The whole CQB under night vision thing is this mystical, cool thing that we do, but realistically, it's most teams, that the SOPs for most teams that we talk with it, they've already decided, kind of, hey, like, you're going to give us night vision training, but here's how we're going to implement it. Most of them, unless you're just this wild tier one team, NTOA tier one, so you're gonna you're only gonna use night vision 5 to 10 times a year, so you're still gonna have that gap in knowledge and training of, here I am putting this thing on. It's like, if I that's not a good example. I'll pass that one. But
yeah,
anyways, yeah, it's
it
yes.
does take continuous training, like anything, right? It's got to be a part of the training cycle to keep that standard there. I think it's a good challenge to teams to try to be able to do everything under night vision that you do, um, not with night vision. It's a high standard, but I think it's a worthy standard to try to get to if you have the training hours to get to it. Obviously, there are things that are more important, in my opinion, than that. Yeah, I know specifically with my team, like we had really only one specific thing that we'd be going through a house under night vision for, and it would be a very rare occasion. We did practice it. It would be more of like an industrial, large silent to contact type thing. And we honestly had a set of dudes that they're the ones that are going to be doing it, right? Unfortunately, not every team has guys that are at the same level. You're going to get new guys on that they're just not there yet, right? They're going to be running into literally everything through a house. Where that kind of the whole silent part of the contact thing, like we're compromised as soon as you trip over this couch, dude. So like you're just not going on this. But again, super limited scope. Never had to do that operationally. So that very rare, but you do want to plan for those worst case scenarios. And that night vision does give you that capability for that worst case scenario. Basically, you have an unknown and you're going to hunt for it. And you're going to get as deep as you can and try to find it before they realize you're in there. Because once you're loud, and, well, gig's up, we're going white light and mock Jesus. So, and we did not have the capability to be going mock Jesus under night vision. We just don't have the time to train like that.
And just realizing that that's something that you can't do, that puts you ahead of the game anyways, is, okay,
don't try to do it.
We're going to throw it up and we're going to go back to doing what we do, so.
Yeah, it's great. So back on the nerd out session, I always let things go down on little rabbit holes, and that's okay. It's good. Good knowledge nuggets in there. But let's transition to like the cost difference. And, like we're talking like rough numbers, obviously, so many variables there, but like a team that's like, hey, I want to consider quads versus dual tubes. We talked about like the greater field of vision with quads, but outside of that, what justification is there for a massive price increase on what they're having to budget for?
Yeah, I mean, quads are almost just, if any regular law enforcement agency came to me and said that I would do everything I could to talk them out of it, to be honest with you. And don't get me wrong, I would love to sell a team 20, $50,000 panos, but that's not what I'm trying to do. But you talk to guys that have used them, mostly in the military. There's a lot of good. There's the advantage. They're pretty heavy. They help that field of view. I think that the most that I've heard from guys that have really done some really important things in the world, guys like to jump them. They're really good for they're that extra peripheral vision, and I've never jumped with night vision, but the extra peripheral vision and the field of view and all that stuff is helpful when you're jumping. So there's a couple of other things that are used for, but a lot of guys I talked to said they'd rather run their duals. So that to me, if you've got guys that have the option to use this technology and they're still saying, hey, I'd rather do this, that right there should justify the, hey, let's go ahead and just shut that door and now let's talk about this down here as a price range. There's some companies that are making some things that are getting panos to more of affordable. I say affordable, closer to affordable for the average agency. But still, I would try to talk somebody out of it.
It's not close enough yet that they would likely be able to afford a laser and training before they could afford that device.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, you're going to get further with that than you. Yeah, and yeah, I would say that about a lot of things. But yeah, so then you take that out, you shut that door, and then you come down, and so realistically, you're in like you can get good white phosphor night vision for $6,500. In that $6,000 range, all the way up to $14,000-$15,000. So now we're in this range of a little more realistic, but even then, that's when I ask all those questions to the teams when I'm working with them is to figure out what part of that scale we need to be in, or what side do they want to be in. It's like we're going to use these once a year, and we don't care about the money. Then okay, this would be great for you then. I've had those.
So what's going to be the biggest difference, like dual tube specifically, between your lower end dual tube units, like your $6,000 to $7,000 units versus your $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 units?
Okay, so the biggest thing, and we get a lot of questions about housings and all these different things like manual gain and all the cool things that come on the housing. That affects the price so little that's not even a conversation I usually have until later. We can pick I use the example, tubes are the engine, right? And then the housing is the
chassis.
Trim.
Yeah.
It's we can decide if you want a power windows and a sunroof later. Let's figure out how fast do we want to go, and figure that. So, because honestly, you could put night vision tubes in toilet paper rolls, and as long as you could hook it all up, theoretically, it would be okay as long as it would work. The tubes are the biggest thing. So there's several different manufacturers of tubes. Some are well known. L3 Harris makes everybody. You were in the military. To be honest with you, until I started doing this, that's the only company I knew because, military, that's what we used a lot. Um, so anyways, yeah, it's there's L3, and then there's Elbit, and then there's Photonis that um, they all make tubes. They all make white tubes. Um, L3 Harris are unfilmed, and the other two are filmed. So the difference there, without going too nerdy, like you said, is just um, the L3 Harris tubes are gonna perform about 30% better, and they're probably gonna fact check me on this. It's like 27.9 or something like that, but um, at a lower light condition. But when you get to too low of light, no night vision works because you have to have ambient light to make it work. So if you're in a cave in Afghanistan or a dark basement, and this tweaker has curtains up all over the windows and stuff like that, and it might get pretty dark and grainy as you descend the stairs, whatever. Um, Now, if I introduce IR light, I can kind of reset all those values, and make something that's filmed or unfilmed perform fairly close to the same capability. So, that's one of the biggest things that makes a difference is the tubes are going to make the cost difference, and then whether they're filmed or unfilmed is going to make that performance difference, unless you have good ambient light and or IR light. So those are going to be, to be honest, the biggest things that are going to affect it.
So what's the most popular set of night vision that you sell to agencies or teams? We'll say teams.
Um, so are you talking about tube specifically, or the housing, or?
Like, yeah, the housing complete package. Is it like an L3 like 31 package, or is it a something else?
I would say it's probably a lot of L3. Obviously, that's like a Ford Interceptor, and you know what I'm saying. That's kind of one of those. It's like Glock. It's kind of it's one of those names. So we sell a ton of L3 Harris, um, but we also, the thing that I hate to hear from some people in the industry is that law enforcement money is government money. It's not their money. They're just going to spend it. They got to spend it anyway. So why not have them spend as much as they can? And that usually comes from somebody who never did the job, right? It's because I know at our agency it was, we could get this, or we could get the three guys we need on road patrol to help supplement guys working overtime. So there's that misconception of like, oh, it's just this endless pot of money. And most law enforcement agencies, that's not the case. So that's where I'm gonna give them an option, and I can prove it to them. I'll say, hey, I'm gonna send you this. They might have had a guy that was on a military unit that was, or they went to a training and they said, hey, this is what you need. Um, Everybody that's trying to sell something is going to tell you this is what you need. And I'm just trying to tell them like, hey, yeah, I'm going to drive to California. I could go in a Ferrari, but a Toyota Corolla is going to get me there, right? And it's probably going to be more comfortable. So,
Nice.
so you're not really, and really not at all. If you have the time to do training and you have the time to understand your technology, anywhere inside that range, we're going to be able to get you night vision that's going to be able to accomplish the mission that you're going to go on. So
Yeah, and I think a lot of guys don't budget in with their ask the training to go along with the technology, and like it's equally
almost
if
never. Yeah.
more important in my opinion to have someone that's done it, that is a legit trainer in that space, come in and then nerd out with you and put you through a 3 to 5 day night vision course so you can get to that baseline, at least know where you need to get to after the training. Um, and like that costs money too. So I think everyone wants to budget the toys, but not the training. And that's not just with night vision. That's with everything in law enforcement, right? So like we're talking about the set of night vision that I ran operationally was probably mid-ish tier. I think we paid like 8 or 9 a unit for it, right? And off the ones that I now have, which are 31s, on the eye, very similar. Both were white phosphorus. Like if there's some ambient light outside, there it's gonna look about the same. Um, One might have a blim on it more or less, like something that doesn't even really matter too much. But the first thing I did notice about these is they were much lighter than my 1531s. So on the head, I'm getting less fatigue on my neck over time. And that matters. Like grams and ounces definitely matter with night vision if you're wearing them on a 4 or 5 hour barricade at nighttime and they're down the majority of that time. Like you're going to start noticing this real quick. So as I picked these up the first time, I was like, oh, okay. Like I see that as a pro, but the actual application of these being under these, it was basically same to me. Like you said, with IR light that you can supplement it to, like the performance is going to be very similar. It's just like you said, like the comfort level, like I think are going to be slightly more with this. I'm going to be more comfortable with this than I would have been that cheaper, but probably definitely heavier option. As long as you're not doing some wild stuff like flying like an Apache or something, then I think some other factors might matter when you're going like 100 miles an hour with night vision. At least that's to my understanding. I flew in helicopters in my military career. We flew under dual tubes a lot, and the aviation grade definitely makes a difference over having like a single monocular or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the blim thing that you were talking about. That's another one. The aviation grade. They definitely do make a difference because they're typically really what it comes down to is the blims in it. I can't even really say that the performance of them is better. Is that they just have a more restrictive spot chart. So you got a lot of people that are like, hey, aviation grade tubes are. Well, there's a lot of people. There's a premium now for aviation grade tubes for some reasons or others, but it's really just the spot chart. And I don't, like you said, I had several sets of night vision over the years that had some pretty serious blims in them, and it's you still got to do the job. And a lot of people, it's kind of like at your own home, you notice all the little things that are wrong as somebody walks in and says, oh, your home's so beautiful. It's the same thing. You're most of the spots, unless they're a big fat spot right in zone one, you're looking past it, or you should be looking past it
Yes.
anyway. So really, that's kind of the biggest thing that comes down to the difference in between those two is just the spot chart. But the other thing that a lot of people think is there's a machine that makes tubes without spots, and there's the machine that makes tubes with spots. Well, tubes are made, they're like fingerprints. You pull them out of the machine, and you're like, oh, let's see what this one looks like, right? It's how they're made. So now it's you actually, if you could deal with a few spots, you can actually steal a pretty good set of night vision from most companies because they got too many people spot hunting and they want perfect 3,000 FOM spotless tubes and stuff like
Right.
that. Or,
Yeah. The set of tubes I had was just over 2,000 FOM, so nothing like crazy, and it had 2 or 3 blims like on outside zones. And when you were actually wearing them, doing something, never notice it. Like your just eyes not picking up on it.
yep,
Um,
yeah,
so
hard
for
to
me, it was
train.
a non-factor. I think a lot of people just nerd out and want like the Gucciest of Gucci, and you don't actually need it, which is kind of the theme of all of this here. Um,
Yeah.
so let's transition into IR stuff, right? So a lot of people nerd out again on the full power. They want that Ferrari of IR laser capability. For law enforcement application, what are your thoughts on IR lasers and floods and whatnot as far as what they actually need?
So I think the two biggest things are one, like we talked about earlier with the night vision, is just having the capability. Is you're already in the right direction. Um, I think the two biggest things are the ease of use. There's a couple of lasers out there that are you definitely would have to spend some time to feel comfortable using it in a high stress situation. I think that in itself is the simplicity of the controls, and then also the ability to widen or narrow my illuminator. Um, there's a couple lasers out there now that have the roll back and forth switch, like the Maul has the forward and back. The Holosun Iris has a back and forth. I think that's kind of on the law enforcement side because we have those distance changes. You go and I need my flood real wide because I'm going up to a house, but then all of a sudden somebody's in a backyard on the backside by the fence, and I need to zoom in, like not zoom in, but narrow that field down and really illuminate that whoever it is. I think that's huge. And there's some companies out there that are solving those problems, but you also don't need to go way too far. It's kind of like we were talking about with the panos. If I was a CCT trying to tell somebody, hey, I need a CAS on that mountainside, and I'm in Afghanistan trying to shoot a laser 3 miles, I'd want to have the best of the best, right? I want to make sure it gets over there. But for what we do, and we talk about this in every kind of class we do in law enforcement, even sniper guys understand our engagements, even for precision, are less than 100 yards average, right? So I don't need a laser that goes 9 miles. I don't need an illuminator that doesn't, so now there are some agencies. I was just up in Montana, and if you're wandering around in Montana, and you might have to deal with a guy that's a certain distance away, then maybe something that's going to reach out and deal with it is going to be something you need, and that makes sense, right? But we're doing the use case, so there's quite a few simple, easy to use. Like one of the biggest things one of the ones I promote is the PEC 15. I hear a lot of teams are like, oh yeah, we've got some old PEC 15s, and we're trying to, and I'm like, man, I've had a PEC 15 for longer than I've had anything else, and that thing never let me down. And there's really good lasers out there, but my point is it's a cheap, it's a good option. Most of us, have used it at some way, whether it be the military or law enforcement. Controls are easy to use. It doesn't have the quick diffuser like I was talking about, but it's price effective for an agency, and it's also easy to use. So it meets kind of the two criteria that I like to use for evaluation.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Like use case, if you're an assaulter on a team and like you're almost certainly never taking a shot outside of 100 yards and in, and likely it's going to be inside that, like overwhelmingly so. Um, by having that full power can actually jack you up pretty good. When you start getting indoors, or near a house, even just the throwback off the siding of a house can definitely get some auto gate going on your on your tubes. And
That's what a lot of people don't realize is that under night vision, that laser, things that you don't think are reflective will reflect it. So yeah. That didn't mean to cut you off. But
yeah,
yes.
no worries. And I think just a lot of cops just don't know what they don't know. They watch YouTube videos where they're just going over specs when they don't actually talk to people that have done the job and then put things through your lens of, okay, what are you actually going to be doing? Okay, maybe you need this option, not this thing that has the absolute best specs just because it can do something. And that's one thing I like about you guys is you don't try to sell them the Gucciest piece of gear if they don't need the Gucciest piece of gear, right? It's you try to steer them towards what's the best fit for their application. Would the Gucci piece of gear work? Absolutely. But could they put that money towards, like you said, something else, training, maybe even a whole nother division, right? Maybe that's enough money to where you can now outfit your K9 team with PVS 14s and now they have a capability. Like all these things, a lot of times SWAT guys are the worst at like, we want. Well, sometimes it's good to give as well. Because that puts that olive branch to people that are already looking at you as like, oh, they get everything they want. Well, give sometimes, and they won't look at you the same. At least that's been my experience. So, I like
14.
that about you guys. There's a lot of in any industry. There's guys that will try to sell you the Gucciest thing, whether it's a car or not, and you don't actually need it for your use case. So I appreciate that about you guys.
Yeah, that's truthfully that's the biggest thing that I try to get people to understand is I think I used this example with you of you get a guy come in and talk about mental health and wellness to a bunch of cops, and they all get, oh, they've never been a cop. What do they know about, and then you get some salesman or you get some guy that, and I'm not trying to offend anybody here, but somebody that was in the military, did the military job, and now they're out, doing training or talking with a company or whatever, and it's like, this is, this is what you need, and it's like, everybody's kind of like, oh my gosh, now I need that. And it's like, well, why don't we apply the same logic when we're talking about this as what we do with this? Because somebody said I need this, so I need to go out and get it now. But they've never done my job, so how do they know? We don't apply the same thing to both circumstances. So yeah, I think that's what that truthfully that's what I want everybody to know. Like when I talk to them is, hey, I'm just trying to get you what you need, not what makes me the most money. So.
Sure. Yeah. And that's, yeah, it shows kind of, in my opinion, like morals where you stand at and stuff like that. And I think part of it is because you're a former end user, like you get it. You've seen the struggle budget wise at, your former agency, so on and so forth. And again, it doesn't mean that other people are, being dishonest. We're not saying that at all. It's just, it sometimes hits differently from someone that's been in those shoes before. Um, so turning back towards GPNVG, like as a company, right? Obviously who you work for, uh, what do you think, there's a lot of places that sell night vision, whether there's some big box stores even that sell a variation of night vision. There's out of like some boutique type places that do as well. What's something that, with you being in the industry, that you found that kind of separates you guys a little bit, where there may be other companies that do it as well, but that you feel like you guys do, that's exceptional compared to many other in the industry?
One of the things that both on the professional side, on my side, and then also on the retail side, one of the biggest things that we do is I would bet that there's a huge amount of e-commerce customers that we get on the website that people are just ready to buy night vision. They click and they buy it. I would say though that probably I would say 90% or better of our customers at some point during the process we will have a conversation with them over the phone. Um, Night vision is one of those things that if you're a civilian buying night vision, or even if you're that we get this a lot, you're a cop that their agency doesn't buy them anything. They literally the only thing they haven't bought is their patrol car. Everything else they purchase. So we definitely try to help those guys out. But the biggest thing is we talk to them on the phone, and that gives that I call it the diamond buying experience. But it's the diamond companies all say come in and get a special this and that. It's kind of how it feels is we get to ask those questions. We have, hey, what are you going to use this for? Well, I'm gonna walk my dog and look at the stars. Like, okay, cool, we got something for you. And we get that all the time. People that are up, guys that are looking through telescopes and stuff like that. We can help. There's all kinds of different applications, but um, the truthfully the biggest thing is the talking on the phone and going through that consultation on the professional side. Um, just the know-how. So everybody that works with us on the professional side, and actually everybody in the company, has been in the military and or law enforcement at some various stages of their career, which gives everybody that end user experience as I'm kind of evaluating the customer's needs and wants, because that's what it, this is besides a house, an engagement ring, and a car, night vision's up there as probably one of the biggest purchases somebody will make in their career or life or whatever. So I wouldn't want to just click on something and hope I got what I needed when I'm spending that amount of money. So we realize that, and some people will say that speaking with all of your customers and doing the on the phone stuff is not sustainable as you scale. But I think that's very important when you're making a purchase like this. So I would say if there's something that I would really want us to be known for to get out there is that's our take is, hey, as long as until we start getting a million phone calls a day, we're gonna talk to everybody. If you want to talk to us, call us and we'll talk you through it. We'll that's one of our mottos is we'll get you there. We'll get you through it. So I'd say
Yeah.
that's the big.
And it is a process for sure. It's a major purchase, whether it's for an agency or for a personal use. Massive commitment. Again, it's these are not cheap things. Even like the lower end units they aren't necessarily cheap. So with that, the training, we keep bringing up training, right? It's a piece of equipment you need to get additional training for it. If you're using it in a professional capacity, if you're a civilian, you want to look at stars, like it's magical, go do that. I like doing it. It's fun. One of my best experiences on an aircraft carrier was taking a set of dual tubes out to the flight deck in the middle of the ocean and just looking up. Like incredible. But
Everybody should see that. That is
yes, like it's another world. With that though, for professional end users, like what do you have experience with other training companies? I know that you do some indoctrination type training yourself. Is there anyone else out there that you would also steer people to for training under night vision other than like the NDoc version that you put out yourself?
Yeah, there's Jamie Caldwell over at 1 Minute Out. He does some good stuff with night vision. We recently hosted Trey Lindsay out here in Kansas City, big TTPOA guy. He put on a really good night vision course. Was out there the whole time, doing the technical side support, helping out with some of the the base levels. I tell people that all the time. I've used night vision a lot, but there's guys that have spent 20,000 hours under it, and I've spent, maybe a couple thousand. So maybe not even that. I don't know. But yeah, there's some other companies out there that are doing some good stuff. I think that for the most part, um, there's more companies doing good night vision because realistically, just like we talked about with other technology, is it's how can I use this to supplement what I'm already doing? See, a lot of guys will try like, hey, if we're going to use night vision, then we probably have to change everything that we do. And the last couple agencies that I've dealt with doing a bigger, longer amount of training is how can I want to see what you're doing now so that I can take this capability and add it to what you're doing. I don't want to change anything. Now there's some things that we're going to add to your program, but we don't need to. I don't want to completely change the way you do things. And I think that just evaluating, if you're set in, and now there are some teams that are like, hey, we still need to get there tactically. Then maybe that whole redoing of how we do things is probably good for them. But realistically, if I could just sit down and say, okay, what are you doing now, and how can I have this help you? I think that's the biggest thing is, if as long as somebody's doing that, I would say they're probably doing it right. As far as the
Yeah.
technical side of it, there's some, which is weird to me. There's a lot of people that will say, I night vision is science, right? So there's a lot of hard facts that show how it works, why it works, and how we can use it to do our job. But there's a lot of up in the air, right? I've told you this before. I compare this to the supplement industry. There's a lot of science behind a lot of stuff, but you still have people that'll say, well, I did this, but I might be an outlier. And so just being able to say, hey, how do I make this fit what I'm doing and not get too wild and crazy with the technical side? And is that an opinion, or is that factual? Is that science? And then how can I validate that? And you've said it. I can't tell you how many times I've heard you say it on your videos and stuff. Is that's what we should be doing with everything, right? But especially with something like this, is how can I have it help me and not get in the way?
Yeah, it's a tool, and a tool should never become a tactic. A tool
Yeah,
should supplement the
yeah,
tactic that you already have, um, as long as the tactic is a good one. Which that's a whole nother debate, not for this podcast. The internet's already on fire about that right now. Um, so, what what does the process look like? So, agency calls you. A guy reaches out to you from an agency, says, "Hey, we're looking at this. This is our budget. This is what we do." What's the process from that conversation on to they get the product shipped to them out the door, like they've received the units?
yeah. So yeah, I have somebody reach out to me. Usually I'll get on the phone with them and say, hey, what are you guys, what are you trying to accomplish with this purchase? Um, Most of the time, I don't say most of the time. Some of the time it's, hey, we had this incident happen and we don't want it to happen again. All right, so now we're gonna solve that problem. So I'm saying, hey, we finally got some extra money. Here's what. So we kind of go through that process, and then really it's there's some T&Es that go out the door. I'll say, hey, I think this will work for you, but I'll also send you this, and you guys, go between the two, figure out what you like, and we'll kind of go from there. That can be night vision, that can be clip-on night vision for snipers, lasers. We do everything. I call everything above the neck, helmets, lights, all that stuff. So if you need, hey, we don't even have shrouds on our helmets, I'll send you a helmet that has. Now I can test the whole thing without just having to hold it up. So making sure that they're testing what they want to potentially purchase. Once we get through that phase, then it's kind of like all right, we go into so we offer a trade-in program. So, I have a lot of agents, well, we have old PVS 15s or PVS 14s, and we want to get rid of we've got an old whatever laser, and we want to upgrade that. And it's like, okay, we'll take that on trade. We actually did an agency not too long ago where they got all their night vision for free because all the stuff they had to trade in equal the value of, okay, cool, it's a complete wash. It's no money out of pocket to that agency. And it doesn't just have to be night vision. There's some other things that we can take in based on some other businesses that we have and things we do that we were able to be a little bit flexible on that. So then it's like, all right, cool. Now you have, let's say they had $100,000 set aside. I can give them a trade value, and now it's like, hey, instead of spending less money, we're just going to use that, still use the whole amount, but now we're going to get way more than we were originally going to get. whether it's a couple sniper clip-ons and stuff like that. So we go through that whole phase, figure out where we're sitting with them, and then usually the longest part is the procurement side on the agency side. And we all know that's usually an issue. I've had 2 in the last 3 years where they paid immediately and we're like, cool, ship it to us. But that's not typical, right? So, I think the average is about 6 months to about a year in order to get through that procurement process. But we try to help with all of that too. So we've had agencies say, well, the city council is asking all these questions and they don't, I'll type up something that they can use to speak in front of the city council and, stuff like that. We help with giving grant information. So that's usually the bulk of the middle part of it. And then after that, it really doesn't take that long at all. Once we get through okay, cool, we're ready to purchase, here's your purchase order. I mean, you're talking less than a month, depending on what they get, usually about 2 weeks. So it's a very, on our side, it's a very hopefully simple process, or at least that's what I've heard from the guys that I've helped. But it's the longest, most frustrating side is that procurement side because it's such a big purchase, and most people don't understand that it's a life-saving tool as opposed to as this Gucci SEAL Team 6 thing, So getting that past a city council or a county legislature is kind of hard, but we've done it enough times now. We kind of know the things to say, and not that we're trying to trick anybody, but it's like, no, here's the facts, and this is how it's going to help. So sometimes it's as short as it can be, or sometimes I've had one go 2 years that it took us to go through the procurement process. So we try to make it as easy as possible. Like I said, that diamond buying experience where if you're talking to your commander and he asks a question, shoot me an email, shoot me a call, text, whatever, and I'll say, hey, no, this FOM means this, and this, we have the whole, like, I can't remember between filmed and unfilmed. I can't remember, all these different things that guys don't have time to think about until you do what I do, which is do this full time. So, I'm happy to answer all those questions and try to make it as painless as I can because we all know, and you've probably been the guy, hey, we need night vision, and go look into it. And it's like, okay, cool. Let me just type into Google night vision,
Yeah,
so
there's so much information out there, and it's kind of all over the place. And this is with any industry. Some of it's good information, some of it's not great. Is there anything that you wish people would come to you already having some knowledge on with night vision that you see as like a lot of people don't understand that it would just be easier if they already understood before they came to you?
To be honest with you, it's kind of like, they always say that the best shooters are people that have never shot before. For explaining night vision, to me, is easier if somebody's like, hey, I used a PVS 14 and a PEC 15 when I was in the military, but other than that, that's my, and I'm like, okay, cool. That's where I was. Because to be honest, when I was a user, I could put the battery in and turn it on. That's about the extent of my knowledge. Some other technical things, but for the most part, and so sometimes it's easier if somebody hasn't gone out into, and I'll say it, Reddit or Facebook groups or whatever, and just, you're getting everyone's opinion on stuff, and it doesn't make it harder, but once somebody already has that oh, well, I heard this was better, or I heard I have to have 2700 FOM and stuff like that, and once they kind of get in that mode, then it's hard to kind of like, hey, I'm telling you right now, you're going to pay half the price for this, and it's going to be what you need, and it's going to be just as good. So, but yeah, I think that having a little bit of knowledge, it makes the dialogue go a little bit better, but I've gotten to the point where I just picture myself sitting there, and I'm explaining it how I would explain it to myself, which is how I learned it, and kind of got to where I'm at. So I would say that if you're looking for night vision, nothing about it, you got tasked with it, just give us a call, and we'll get you from the ground up. We'll make sure we'll make sure it makes sense as we go through it.
Right. Yeah. You guys have had that conversation many of times with people trying to articulate the why behind it. So calling you guys or emailing, whatever, Zooming with you guys could save them a lot of headaches by just watching a bunch of YouTube videos of guys that likely have never had to articulate this to a command staff or a city council or whoever else it may be of, hey, why are we about to spend all this money on this thing that I don't think we need? Because a lot of times they don't think we need it. It's our job to educate them, and you guys have done that a bunch of times. So it's kind of a little hack there. Just go straight to the source instead of, and I'm guilty of it as well. I'll nerd out on YouTube and get 30 different opinions, and I'll go back and forth 20 times on what's the right thing. Well, How about going to a guy that's actually done the thing, that has articulated it a few times to find out what works for him, or what he has seen work for other agencies in the past, articulation wise?
I think the biggest thing, and this is again goes for everything as the law enforcement profession, is that nobody likes to be a white belt. So it's like, if I'm going to call that night vision guy, I want to feel like I know a lot so that I don't have to seem like the guy who doesn't know a lot. And I think, again, that could go for anything. I played golf forever and I was terrible at it until I finally said, hey, I think I could probably have someone teach me how to play golf. So, but yeah, just being okay with calling and saying, hey, I know nothing about this and I'm in charge of getting it. So it's hard sometimes for guys to do.
Yeah, you got to humble yourself a little bit as a tack guy to be like, hey, I don't have that cool toy. Can you tell me about that toy? It takes some humility, and we need a little bit more humility in our profession. I'll say that. So in closing, like, how can guys find you, GPNVG, and also, like, what are some upcoming conferences maybe you guys are going to in the coming months that if some guys listening could find you at?
Yeah, so gpnvgs.com is the website. And I think, oh man, the summer is slow. Most, like, almost the whole tactical 2A, whatever you want to call it, our
Yeah,
industry.
summer break. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
picks
summer
back up
break.
kind of in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty slow. I'll be out in Colorado at the Rocky Mountain TOA in, when is that? August, I think. But the summer's pretty slow. We just had OTOA. That was really cool. We got a
Big
lot of guys
conference. Yeah.
through the breakouts in that. But after, I mean, the national conference, the NTOAs, I'd say the next biggest one will be at in Nashville, and I think that's also, I think, the end of August.
Are you guys doing a breakout on that one?
Not an NTOA, no.
Okay. So for guys that don't know what we're talking about, so Jason does a breakout session at some of the conferences of, like, down and dirty on night vision, procurement, all that stuff, articulation, and he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that stuff. So if you're at a conference and he's teaching that block and you're considering night vision or even upgrading your night vision, it's a worthwhile block to sit in. You're going to take nuggets away to add to your arsenal when you're putting your package together to send it up to the head shed, if you will. So if you truly are serious about trying to acquire night vision, I would highly recommend going to that if you're at one of the TAC conferences. And even if Jason's not a presenter and he's there, like NTOA, find him and have these conversations. Like, obviously he can give you that information at those conferences for sure. So with that, I always try to end on a question, right? If you could tell every administrator in the country that their agency did not have night vision capability, how night vision could make their community safer in about a 60-second snippet, what would you say to that?
Okay. Yeah, man, that was a good one. So kind of like we talked about earlier, I when I talk to command staff, that then talking to that decision makers are I like that, because SWAT guys sometimes aren't the best middlemen. So I would say that, just like we talked about earlier, the fact that you can purchase a superpower for your guys, I guarantee you, if they could purchase flying cars, they probably would. But it's like, hey, if I can purchase a superpower where we all know the statistics of things that happen in the dark, right? And that's typically where most officers struggle, is that gaining that initial situational awareness in the dark, white lights flashing around everywhere. It's like a disco running around sometimes in somebody's front yard. Buying a superpower for your guys is probably the best thing I can say, is that I know it's a lot. You've probably spent a lot of money on some other crazy things. But this can literally supplement every piece of your agency. An SRO could have one in his backpack, because lights could go out, or there's school events at night and stuff like that things happen in the parking lot. Canine officers, community outreach units that are out, and talking to people. SWAT guys, obviously are up there. But it can literally supplement and make it safer, and not just for our guys, but safer for other people. If I feel like I could identify somebody in the dark without having white light's great, but have you ever been on scene with 4 guys that are trying to white light the same thing? It's kind of crazy what the shadows that it creates and the distortions that it creates and stuff like that. So and we've been using white light forever. I'm not trying to bag on it, but you know, if I could as an administrator purchase something that gave my guys that advantage, I mean, I'd find a way to do it. And it's not just because I sell night vision; it's because it can help everybody and keep the public safe. So it's a life. I always say it's a life-saving tool, not a life-taking tool. A lot of people think that because they've watched, you know, some movie or they played a video game that had night vision, and they're out there running around shooting people and stuff like that. So yeah,
no, I agree. I agree with all that. White light's amazing. However, you can pick up on somebody under night vision, oftentimes quicker without them knowing that you've picked up on them, which is now giving you time in your decision-making process and your reading of what they're doing. Them knowing you see them may elicit a reaction that they might not have done if they didn't know that they were being watched. So that's one of the reasons it's a superpower for sure for law enforcement. But with that, thanks for coming on, Jason. Guys, make sure you follow GPNVG on all the socials. Jason underscore GPNVG, I believe, is your Instagram tag. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
So follow Jason also on Instagram. Look at their website. Reach out if you guys have any questions on night vision. They're my go-to guys when it comes to all my nerd questions when it comes to this stuff as well. As always, guys, like, subscribe, stay safe, stay sharp, and I hope that we can talk soon.